Hi, this is Amelia here, course leader. I wanted to give you a brief overview of the programme on day one. Your first task is to guess what the initials are in those circles, and I will share what those are now. We will be in places that have access to the outdoors. The first and last day, and the middle day will be in Cardiff Butte Park Visitor Centre. We will look at ways of incorporating working with nature and the outdoors into the supervision, but you can also think about that in your work with patients and in other settings. And we're open and eager to be influenced by yourselves as well. Last year's module was very successful, and we hope that this year it'll be the same. Person-centred stands for, we introduce two models to you there, the classic Rogerian person-centred model to supervision, and also Bridget Proctor. And the three functions model, you'll learn more about those as time goes on. Then we look at EDI, so we have a day on EDI in supervision. We have lots of resources on Microsoft Teams. You'll all be participating in that, in bringing different elements to that, and we have somebody in to talk to the group. We take one theme a year, because obviously the area is so huge. A couple of years ago, we'd done sexual orientation and gender. Last year, we looked at neurodiversity, and this year we're looking at poverty. You'll also be contributing to that too in the Diversity Bazaar, which we'll talk more about in the class. Then we have PD, which stands for psychodynamic. We take two main models there, the Hawkins and Shoei supervision model, which is a seminal model in the UK. Everybody who knows anything about supervision knows about the Hawkins and Shoei model. It's called a seven-eyed model. It's complicated on one level, but it's very creative on another, and it's well worth being familiar with. So we spend 2 sessions on that. And we also look at the Balint model, which is often used in health settings with doctors, but can be used in a multidisciplinary. I run several multidisciplinary groups in the Balint reflective method. It's a very deceptively simple method, but also very creative, and most people who use it do enjoy it. So that will be a pleasure to teach. So that'll complete the voting for psychodynamic, although of course there are plenty of other models in that. Then we move on to group supervision, and we look at that in 2 ways. We look at sort of using groups creatively, and hopefully we'll be doing that throughout the programme, so you'll get a sense of how that feels throughout your time on the programme. In the specific group modules, we look at 3 kinds of group supervision. So we look at the Tavistock approach, which acknowledges the conscious and unconscious, and 2 things happening sometimes in opposition to each other. Then we look at a highly structured model, so in complete contrast, we look at the Tietze model, which is a sort of peer consultancy model that you could sort of take in on a one-off basis to a supervision group. You might teach that as a teach-in session, a group you've never met before. It kind of fits to that sort of thing, but it would equally fit to an existing supervision group, and you could use that as the structured model and approach within that. Finally, on groups, we look at the Proctor sort of cooperative group model, and she looks at how groups evolve from being sort of dependent to independent and interdependent, and we look further at that. And hopefully by the end of that module, you will feel more confident to work with groups, and you will feel like you're developing your own style. And then we've got the independent study. Now that's sort of peppered throughout the programme, where we have portfolio support sessions, and we have ways in which you're supported to do that preparation work for the CPCAB Diploma. So more on all of that later. If we cut the course another way, we could think about it in relation to ourselves as individuals, and then how we interact with others. The first step in terms of supervision is connecting to yourself, so that you can be intellectually and emotionally available to your supervisee. How do you do that? The person-centered method is a really good way of coming into the present. Using mindfulness, we really focus on connecting to the self and coming into our full presence. If we're not very well connected with ourselves, then we're not going to be very available to other people. So it's really important in this world of many, many distractions to be able to, first of all, come into ourselves and say, well, how am I? Where am I? How am I feeling at the moment, even before I meet this person that I'm working with? And to notice that and be present with it, so that then you know how you're going to be influenced by the person that you're working with next. So it's coming back in touch with ourselves. It's also that time that you spend with yourself where you often think about, after you reflecting and thinking about your experiences working professionally and when you might need help. What I call the self-supervisory process, really, of thinking, right, do I need to have an informal conversation? Shall I write about this? I'm journaling about this. And then when none of that seems quite satisfying, that's the time then perhaps to turn to your own supervisor or colleague professionally and begin to talk further about something that might be on your mind. That's the intra stuff, if you like, connecting to self and presence and developing that. And then in the one-to-one relationships, that's the inter between you and the one-to-one person that you're working with. And of course, in the course, we relate in the group. So you consider yourself in the group relationship, and we have a space to do that in the experiential group. So that will give you more opportunity, really, to reflect about the role that you tend to take in your team and in your working community, and the choices, consciously and unconsciously, that you might be making about that. Then in supervision, we're all in the same organisation on this particular programme, which is fairly unique, I imagine. Inevitably, things emerge in the conversations that have implications for how we navigate ourselves within the organisation. And as we work in our groups together too, we also network and meet people from other parts of the organisation, and that inevitably helps us to navigate the organisation more skillfully. Finally, the course has the emphasis on, we've talked about before, nature and the outdoors, being in the environment, and perhaps how we can use that to enhance and broaden the perspective of our work. I was looking at the themes the other day about how in the different theoretical approaches, the emphasis both on person-centred and psychodynamic is very much on self-awareness. Both of them set a high value on knowing ourselves and improving and being committed to improving that knowledge on a regular basis. So the psychodynamic field would argue that you must do that through your own therapy, and the person-centred will probably agree with that, but very committed there to you can't be congruent if you don't know yourself, sort of thing. But it's not a fixed thing, of course, it's a dynamic thing. We'll never get to know ourselves completely, we'll never get to know another completely. So, we can only be committed to developing all the time. Also, in both psychodynamic and Rogerian, there's an emphasis on the relationship that you develop with the supervisee, and how you might use that then to develop the work further. So in the Rogerian and you would always look to staying close to the person, to understanding them, to reflecting back that understanding, never judging, but staying close to them as a companion on their journey and reflecting back constantly how you understand the landscape to be from that position. And as you do that, so the person hears themselves better and comes to a more sort of compassionate and accepting place in themselves. And of course, ironically, when you reach those sort of points that you're more ready to make a change than if you don't receive that understanding. So as you, as the recipient of supervision, receive really strong empathic understanding, you begin to understand yourself better, accept yourself better, and think, oh, so that's how it is. And then you can make better decisions. Left to your own devices, you might often sort of deny things or push them away, not give yourself enough time to think about it. Might feel a bit too painful. And therefore you don't really get to the bottom of it. So in that way, in the person-centered approach, you have an improved ability then to manage your cases, because you're coming to a real understanding of you in the relationship and how you might get in the way, and also how you might facilitate. And in that, you can also take that experience outside of that relationship. And that works both ways. You know, it is very much a sort of peer-to-peer cooperative working relationship in the person-centered method. Now, in the psychodynamic method, we're looking a little bit more at the transference relationship. So we understand in the psychodynamic that as we develop trust with our supervisees, we may remind them of parental and authority figures that they've had in the past, and they may also treat us as if we are them. And sometimes in supervision, it might emerge that as the supervisor, you feel very much like the supervisee is treating you as their mother or a sibling or something. That you tend to sort of take that to your own supervision, get some insight about that, and then offer it back into the relationship in a way that's palatable for the supervisee. Because the chances are, if they're treating you as their mother, for example, they're probably treating other people in authority as the same thing. They're having the same expectations, which may be both sort of positive and negative, and they're kind of repeating old patterns. So offering some of your experience about how you feel in the relationship may be very helpful to enabling the supervisee to understand where they are in the relationship and what they're doing elsewhere at work. So with those moderated expectations, as it were, they can begin to treat people more realistically and navigate better professionally. In the group supervision, and I'm sorry my head's on part of this, although you'll get a separate PowerPoint where you'll see more of it. But yes, we're looking to help people feel that understand themselves better in groups, understand the roles that they take, so that as you do understand that better in the sort of 9 experiential groups that we give you, as you come to understand yourself better in that, so hopefully you'll get a better sense of how you are in a team. And in a group and in a professional community, and you can make some more effective choices about, is that the way I still want to be? Do I want to try this? Do I want to experiment with that? So in being in the experiential group, you'll get some feedback about how your experience that you wouldn't normally get outside, as it were, and you'll be able to sort of work with that. So you'll also, just in the group community, get an opportunity to practice as peer supervisors and apply the models that we're working in the group. So plenty of opportunity for all of that. So those are our 3 main foci, I think, of the course. Okay, so on this, I've done something showing the key staging points of the programme. And as you can see there, we start the programme, that's day 1. About halfway through the programme, we ask you to exchange a workbook with another peer and comment on each other's workbooks, and that gives you quite a good flavour, really, of how somebody else sees the world and getting a sense of that. And also, it's your first exercise, a formative exercise. We are asking you to give in the feedback that you give to your peer into your supervisor as well. So just as the beginning of your peer supervisor and effectively supervisor skills, because as you can imagine, supervision does involve using a fair amount of feedback skills. So this is helpful to learn from how somebody else has done their workbook. And the best way of learning something, of course, is to teach it. So by actually sort of giving feedback on somebody else's workbook, that's also the design. During that break, half-term break as well, we also have online portfolio support given by Tracy Booth, where she offers a session on undertaking the portfolio, and she did a model portfolio last year, and it's well worth looking at. As well as that, she will also offer 5 tutorials then. There'll be 5 offered at Christmas and 5 offered in February, so it's your opportunity to book in for an online tutorial, about 10 minutes or so, to talk about the portfolio and how to prepare for that. You'll have slots that you will all book into, and then you'll meet with Tracy online. I think she'll send you an invitation because it's easier for her to do that with all the NHS firewalls and so on than it is the other way round. That's in the middle of the term, the first term. Then we go on and have the one-to-one skills assessment, which is at around just before the Christmas break. So you'll spend some time preparing for that. You will be in groups online, and you'll do an online session which you will leave on Microsoft Teams. So you need to be prepared. Microsoft Teams will sooner or later get rid of it, but you will leave it up there so that your supervising tutor can watch it, and also that you can watch it and self-assess your work on the Microsoft Teams page. And then you will bring your self-assessment to a tutorial with your supervisor, and that will constitute your skills assessment. In that online session where you undertake supervision with another member of your group, you will also do 2 checklists for your peers. So when they're supervising online, you will write a checklist for them, and you will give them that checklist, and you can do that after the group, but you'll all give each other feedback, and you'll give each other a couple of checklists. So at the end of that online session in your supervision group, you'll have made a recording of a supervision session to which you will watch later and do a little self checklist assessment. You will also send to your peers 2 checklists, a checklist each for them to have for their folders. You will keep a copy of the checklist that you give to your peers, because that's another example of you giving feedback as a peer supervisor, which we want to see. So you will keep your 2 peer supervision feedbacks, and you will give those to your supervising tutor, okay? And all of those things will sort of comprise into that first skills assessment and discussion with your supervisor, which is held a couple of weeks later. So we get to the middle of the programme, where we'll be at Butte Park. We'll work creatively. We'll have a lovely creative day with the whole group. And we'll do lots of creative things in groups that will help you to think about a wide range of original ways in which you can work with supervision groups and individual supervisees as well. So that'll be a nice fun day. Then the case review. So after Christmas, you'll be reading about the case review. So that is really a reflection on your work with your external supervisee, the one that you're doing 10 hours with, or you may do 2 sets of 5 hours with 2 sets of supervisees. You'll have read the briefing on that, which is in the assessment handbook, and you'll be putting that together in relation to writing a case review. We give you several foci, and we ask that you take one focus for it. You might look at it, for example, through an EDI eye, or you might look at it from an example of fostering self-awareness with your supervisee. You might look on it as enabling your supervisee to work effectively with a patient on a specific situation, perhaps a professional ethical issue. You'll take a focus. The case review is only 1,000 words, so that's why you want to take a focus, and we give you the opportunity to choose from 5 foci in the briefing. You need up to 5 references, no more than that, because we're not looking at a full-scale essay. We're only looking at a review, but we are looking for you to have a grasp of the literature. 5 references won't be difficult. During the spring term, we have the group skills, which I believe is on the 10th of February. A day after we've delivered the group sessions, where you will do group skills together. So we'll divide you into 4 groups. It'll be different to your supervision groups this time. It'll be 3 or 4 groups, depending on the size of the group. You'll all be mixed up, working with different people to the ones that you normally work with. So that'll be good. That'll be refreshing for you. You'll conduct a group over the course of the day. So we'll have 4, sessions during that day, and each of you will conduct 1 session with the group as the group supervisor. So you'll see how that goes. It worked very, very successfully last year, and it was really interesting to see the different ways in which people work with the group. You've got lots of opportunity to prepare for that through being in the group together and through being in your supervision groups. Your final sort of piece of work then is the portfolio completion. Now, you'll have had another portfolio session at Christmas online, and you'll have had one in February online. You'll have a pretty good idea, really. Plus, there's a video that Tracy and I did last year. You're going to have a pretty good idea from everything about how to do the portfolio. Tracy will also hold portfolio surgeries. So everyone will have an opportunity to see her with their portfolios towards the end of the course. So that's scheduled in there. You can, again, book an individual session with Tracy at that point. So the surgery is there. It's sort of drop in, drop out. Some of you really don't need a session. If you're in a panic and you're a bit, nervous and so on, then you need a session and talk to Tracy. But at the official end, the external verifier comes in, looks at all the portfolios, and he likes to meet the group. So we ask that you come back on the 31st of March for an hour, bringing your portfolio, because that's when you present your portfolio as well. You will leave your portfolio in training room 2 for the EV to peruse. Leave your portfolio in training room 2. You'll have a session with him. You'll then let him go through the portfolios, and then you'll pick your portfolio back up in the afternoon. So you might go for lunch, but maybe with members of the course. That's what happened last year. You'll need to leave him with your portfolio for an hour and a half before you come back and pick it up. That's the start of the course. Now, what are my key admin tips for you? And I am quite an organised administrator, so I'm quite a good person to talk to about tips. If you do these things, as long as you stay organised, you're going to be okay. So protect your diaries, okay, so that you don't get into a panic, you don't double book your days. And then really be here when you're here, be distraction free. I've gone on at length about that in the letters that I've sent you, so I won't go on about that here. But really be here, so you're fully focused, and you really allow yourself to sponge up the work and enjoy it and absorb it. Put all the key assessment dates and deadlines straight into your diary, whatever diary you use, electronic or written diary, into your personal and professional calendar, so it's all there. Okay, you cannot miss it then. You cannot not know when your deadline dates are. If you're super anal like me, I'd actually even put in time, previous to that, to say preparation time, and reserve some time out for that as well. Stare at your calendar for a while periodically. I do this on a regular basis to sort of think, now, what am I doing next week? And I sit down and I look at my calendar for about half an hour so that I know exactly what I'm doing, and am I prepared, and have I got this and have I got that? That's very, very helpful. Just have a little bit of time just to look at it and take it in. I don't know if other people do that, but that's something I do. Do a regular input into your workbooks after each session, by which thing I mean write in them. You might find it helpful to actually print off the workbook and just write in it. Leave enough space for you to write in it, so you might have to extend the spacing a bit. But you might want to do that. You might have a handwritten workbook. That could be quite an efficient way of doing it rather than having to electronically mess about and everything. You need to make that decision at the beginning. But whatever decision you make, do regularly input into your workbooks. Now, we have a Microsoft Teams channel between sessions. You'll also get an email from me usually between sessions, not always if there's nothing much to say, but sometimes you will, giving links and so on. And I advise that you look at the channel. And you'll find on the channel, it's all sort of put out pretty much in the same format, a page of sort of videos, and then you'll see a page of files. And in those files, you'll see the PowerPoints that we use and also any further handouts and notes. Now, you don't have to know all of it backwards. I give you in my reading guide a kind of de minimal amount that I think that you should read. So have a look at that. Don't feel you've got to absolutely read it all. At minimum, I would look at the presentations. I would look at the PowerPoints. I'd look at the videos of me doing the session on person-centered and psychodynamic and so on. So I would look at those because that gives you, when we actually go into the sessions, we won't be doing a lot of lectures or input because all that will be on the video. So look at the videos, look at the PowerPoints, at a minimum. And then decide what else you want to look at. I think in terms of preparing for the portfolio session, do attend Tracy's session and book a tutorial with her. And as long as you stay organised, you should be fine. Good luck.